Hey everybody! What is today? Wednesday? Hopefully y'all can hear me. I've got my team on as well, so somebody will give me the I can hear you message, hopefully. Thanks for all being here. I see everybody is coming in now. Got about 5 minutes before we're going to start. Just so you guys know, I'll mention this again, but we're going to be using a melt performance band. You can either use the light gauge or the original gauge melt method band. I think I'm going to use the light gauge myself today. I don't know. And I'm going to do a performance foot treatment. So if you have the large soft and the large firm balls, we're going to need them both. So hopefully you've got those. And we are going to need the melt roller. And you guys all know that the melt roller is a soft roller. So if you're using a hard roller, I would suggest, for the compression techniques, okay, but for the lengthening and when we do the core work, you might want to just roll up a towel and have a towel nearby to do those techniques. I'm going to see if anybody can hear me. I saw somebody just pop up. Somebody just let me know that, yes, you can hear me. Maybe give me a thumbs up or I can hear you. Let me know. Hopefully the sound is clear and okay. We'll be going in about 4 minutes. Perfect. Thank you guys for saying you can hear me. Thank you, thank you. Hey, I'm curious, how many of you came to the live session last week? Give me a yes if you did, or if you've come to any of the previous melt classes that I've taught. Great, thank you. Glad if you are back again. Last week we did a couple of pretty tricky moves, like some of the more difficult moves like a sternal decompress, and I know I had some messages that were written in saying I wasn't really sure what I was doing. I have a streaming platform called Melt on Demand, and there we have tutorials. And the tutorials really break down the nuances of the techniques. Whereas these are a class, I'm kind of bringing you through how I would do the treatments. I'll give you as many tips as I can to do the treatments correctly. But if you're brand new to Melt on Demand, we have a Getting Started section, which brings you through the 7 fundamental sequences from my first book, which is the Melt Method book. So in this book, there were 7 sequences: the rebalance sequence, an upper and lower body compression sequence, an upper and lower body length sequence, a neck and a low back release sequence. And when you put these sequences together, we create what we call a melt map. And in the Getting Started section on the app, I go through each sequence. And what's really important that you guys understand is what a single sequence does to change how you feel, to give you permission to go into your body and sense what you feel from beginning to end. What changes do you make? And it's important that you kind of notice that, because that's something really important about Melt, is what we call the indirect before direct approach of Melt. So a lot of people, when they're first trying to do self-care, if your neck was hurting you, what do? You take a ball and you jam it right into your neck, right? And I always say, don't chase your pain. Think of the pain as a victim in your body. If you're a little kid was screaming out for your help, somebody needed you, you wouldn't walk up to them and punch them in the face, would you? No. What would we do if a kid was crying out for our help? We would get down at their level, right? We would calm them down. We would soothe them and tell them everything was going to be okay. And then we would take information in, and then we would take action, right? But when our bodies are hurting us, what do? We go right after the areas that hurt us and actually press even harder. And here's the thing, if you're in pain, don't cause pain to get out of pain. So our approach is to really work indirect before direct. So if you had low back pain, the last treatment that you would do is the low back release sequence. We would start at the feet, work up the body, maybe in the upper body, and then slowly approach the low back. So really think about how to take care of yourself and learn how to care for yourself in, let's say, a more gentle and focused way. So the session that we did last week was a lot about rehydrate. The 4 R's of MELT: reconnect, rebalance, rehydrate, and release. Today, we're going to be doing some of the sequences and moves from my second book, which is called MELT Performance. And this book really talked about emotional pain and how emotions can cause us pain. And also, especially for athletes, when we get injured, you know, sometimes it's the no pain, no gain thing, and we won't really take a break, and it causes more problems later on. So if you're really curious about just, again, the mindset of helping your body by reintegrating neurological timing and stability, that's what we're going to be doing today. And in the MELT Performance book, that's what we talked about, was neurological reintegration and repatterning techniques. These are usually done by a hands-on therapist, and I'm going to teach you how to do it to yourself. And our focus today is on the word stability. And when I say stability, I always say, I'm not talking about how well you balance on a Bosu ball. I'm talking about all aspects of your stability: emotional, neurological, chemical, psychological. All aspects of stability really are functioning involuntarily. You know, you can't think your way into balance, right? This is autonomic, but we can actively participate and tinker a little bit with our autonomic nervous system, calming our bodies down, giving us permission, sensing what we feel, treating our bodies in these subtle body ways. We can really restore neurological stability. And what we're going to be focusing on is the shoulder girdle, the pelvis, and the core today. And we are going to do a MELT Performance foot treatment. We're going to do a real quick one just to ground you a little bit, because it's an important aspect of stability is your footing. So again, if you're new to MELT, on MELT On Demand, we have tutorials and all sorts of things that will break down move by move if you need some nuance, but I'm going to go ahead and give you guys a MELT Performance class. Now again, you're going to either need the light gauge or the regular gauge resistant band. You're going to need the large softball and the large firm ball from your hand and foot kit, and you're going to need the MELT soft body roller. Remember, if you don't have a roller, roll up a towel, better for you with some of the techniques we're going to do. And I'm going to cue you guys through some of my favorite moves, especially for those of you who have hip, knee, or shoulder pain. Pay attention. These techniques are super subtle when we get to the NeuroStrength techniques. But let's start, as we always do, with a basic rest assess. I'm going to have you guys go ahead and lie on your back, palms faced up, arms and legs extended, and just take a note, take a breath in. Just breathe in, feel your body expand. Breathing out, feel your body relax. And just do that a few times and just notice what you feel as you breathe in and out. Use your body sense. Just give yourself permission to go into your body and sense what you feel. Don't try to change anything or adjust. Begin to notice what we're going to call your masses and spaces. Masses are on the ground, spaces are off the floor. And just tune into what areas of your body are on and off the ground. Now, I'm going to point out some common imbalances that I want you to take note of if you have them now and if we can eliminate them. And what we're focused here today on is core stability, is actually activating our sense of centering, our sense of well-being. So I want you to use your body sense, and from head to toe, just notice if you have any excess tension in your upper body. Could you relax your shoulders? Could you relax your thighs? Are you holding any unnecessary tension? And then in your upper body, notice where your torso weight is rested most heavily. If you have a lot of accumulative stress in the connective tissue, altering the fine balance of your masses and spaces, you're going to feel most or all of your back weight is propped up on your shoulder blades, way up in the upper 1/3 part of your back. But when you tune in to the space of your torso, that low back curve is going to feel more lifted, like a mid-back curve. So instead of the mid-rib wall, ideally that's where we have the weight, not the shoulder girdle, but the mid-ribs where women define the bra line. If you're noticing that this region of your back, below the shoulder girdle and above the low back, is lifted and tense above off the ground, just make a note of it. Another thing I want you to notice is, where's the weight of your pelvis resting? Ideally, you're feeling like you're weighted on two evenly weighted, what my instructors often call fluffy butt cheeks. Instead, you might really notice that you're lying on your tailbone and the back of your thighs. Really key into the back of your thighs. Those are masses. Notice if the back of your thighs feel more like spaces off the ground. Okay? And again, you can scan your whole body. There's lots of imbalances that we can feel. But again, the 4 common ones is feeling all your back weight on your shoulder blades, a high tensional lift in your mid-back, your tailbone pronounced to the ground, or the back of the thighs off the floor. Just notice, you have 1, 2, 3, or all 4 of those. And then Also notice your autopilot's efficiency. Divide yourself into a left and a right half. What's the autopilot? It's the aspects of our body that are trying to support, protect, and stabilize us without our voluntary control. Just key into the left-right halves. If it feels to you like one entire side of your body is more weighted or one leg feels longer, just notice that. That's what we're going to call autopilot inefficiency. It's simply saying your autopilot's having a hard time finding your center of gravity. That'll leave you out of balance when you go to stand up. So let's go ahead and do another standing body scan. We're going to roll on our side. Go ahead and stand on up, and we're going to do a performance foot treatment. And I'm going to give you another assessment, fairly easy one, which we're going to call a spine flex and hip hinge assess. So all I want you to do is just stand with your feet about hip width apart and just nice and slow, round your body on down. Okay, and I want you to notice as you go down, where do you feel the tension in the back of your legs? Is there any distinction in where you feel the tensional pull? And I also want you to kind of key into how far down to the ground you go. Okay, and just kind of notice how far down you are. And then soften your knees, take your time and round your body all the way on back up again. And just try to remember what you feel on that one. I'm just going to change this camera just a little bit, make sure you guys can see me here. And we're going to go ahead and grab our large soft ball. That's the one that we're going to need to start. And you're going to set that ball down. Now, I'm going to mirror you, so I'm going to start on my left foot. I want you to start on your right foot. And what I want you to do is take your left foot, and I want you to put it about maybe a foot away from the ball. And then you're going to bring your forefoot in front of the ball. And nice and slow, we're just going to begin to shift our body weight left and right. Like a cat, you're just going to slowly shift back and forth. And I want you to kind of spread out your toes, give yourself kind of a little bit of time to adapt to the compression, and then land on the ball. And to help your autopilot find your center of gravity, just move your joints around any which way you want. Just go ahead and just kind of give yourself a little motion. And then come on back up top. You're going to take your left foot, slide it backward, and we're going to take that ball and we're just going to move it just in front of the heel. So just bring it back a little bit and go ahead and compress that point again. Just pause there. And then take half of your body weight off, and we're going to try 3 compression techniques: gliding, shearing, and rinsing. So first we're going to start with a glide. Keep your forefoot on the ground and begin to drag your foot over the top of the ball. And the secret of a good glide is consistent pressure. So just nice and gently start to glide back and forth. And when you feel like you have consistent pressure on that ball, nice and slow, just drift your foot forward so that that ball zigzags to the back of your heel, and then slowly work your way back. And when you come back to that point just in front of your heel, second technique we're going to practice here is called a shear. Pin your skin, and you're going to just really small make a little wiggle motion with your foot. Now, shearing is different than a glide. Gliding prepares, it's a way to explore our tissue, it's a way to sense areas of tenderness. But here we're pinning the skin, and we're actually dragging it on the underlying plane, almost like working fluid into a sponge, working on those underlying substances of the foot, of the skin, and then you're going to compress and weight. So I always think of that like working fluid into a sponge, compress. And now we're just going to rinse in one direction. We're going to go from our toes to our heel. And what I want you to see here is how I kind of push the knuckle of my toes, and then I push over the ball, and I kind of drop into that front foot. So I just want to take a little bit of body weight off of my back foot, keeping the pressure constant in one direction. So rinsing is a one-directional motion. This is what we call a global fluid exchange technique. This is a way to just drive force in fluid. And they call that mechanotransduction, nice fancy word for creating a charge in tissue, changing mechanical force into a fluid exchange, cellular exchange. Last technique really quick is just friction. Just really lightly rub the bottom of your foot. So we're preparing overall today with this ball. Okay, so now go ahead and just set that ball aside, and you're going to get your large firm ball. Okay, so now this firm ball is not going to compress like the soft ball, so be mindful here. You're going to put your heel behind the ball and just kind of tickle the center of your foot. And once you feel like you've got the center of your foot on the ball, I just want you to feel like you're pushing toward the ball, not straight down. You're kind of pushing forward into the ball. Soften your knee a little bit and just try this. Round down for a moment. Notice the pressure that you feel on the ball, and then soften your knees. And take your time, and as you come up, don't lose the pressure that you feel you can tolerate. And then once you come back up top, let's do a different type of shear, an indirect shear. I want you to curl your toes in, and then spread your toes out and give them a wiggle. So this is called an indirect shear. I'm contracting muscles against an area of compressive interface, right? So the ball is creating some compression and I'm creating the shear by contracting the muscles. I want you to pause there for a second. And then set your toes down to the ground. That ball should move back just a little bit in front of your heel. Maintain your pressure, and let's try again our gliding. Now watch me here. Gliding is a slow, consistent pressure, and with the firm ball, it's not a preparatory technique anymore. It's an exploratory technique. I want you to really key into if you have connective tissue issues, if that tissue is a little stiffened, as you go back and forth over your heel, you're going to kind of feel like you got grains of rice living in your heel. So just sort of notice it. And then nice and slow, go ahead and work your way back. And then as you come back, again, just in front of your heel, soften your knee and create a tiny little wiggle action here. Again, just trying to pin the skin, just wake up a little region of fluid. So again, a local fluid exchange here. I'm going to compress and wait. And then I'm going to rinse. I'm going to bring the ball to the ball of my big toe, soften my knee, and I'm going to rinse. And then I'm going to go to my second toe, I'm going to push, and I'm going to rinse. And then I'm going to go to my third toe. Notice if that ball does not travel straight down your foot, you might feel like it kind of traverses a little bit. We have a bone in our foot called our navicular, and oftentimes that drops from some of the hip instability, causes poor footing, and again, can cause low back pain and all sorts of issues with stability. Let's go one more time anywhere under your foot. And then the last technique was friction. See if you can balance and really lightly rub the bottom of your foot with the ball. Nice breath in. And then exhale. Now, I just want to take a minute here to just notice a little bit of a change in fluid flow. This is sometimes really interesting for people to feel. If you put your feet side by side and just close your eyes, I want you to see if you can identify a difference, not just in your foot, but in what you feel in your legs, all the way up your torso. On the leg that we haven't melted, I want you to draw your attention to what you feel in your leg. When joints are really absent of fluid flow, when we don't have that nice frequency through our connective tissue system, you kind of feel like you can feel your hip, knee, and ankle. But on the leg that's hydrated, a leg that has stimulated, the leg that has better sensory reception, your foot will feel more integrated into the floor. Open up your eyes and notice if you feel that. Okay, so if you're feeling that, that's great, that's fluid exchange. We could also take a moment and do our forward bend. And you might notice a difference in both of your legs. You might feel like the leg that you've hydrated has more of a seamless pull, whereas the leg that we haven't melted, you might kind of start to notice that most of the time we're stretching our tendons instead of the muscle belly. We're feeling sort of the segmented pull around our joints. Soften your knees, take your time and round yourself on up, and let's try the same thing on the other side. You're going to again start with your large soft ball, and I'm going to bring the camera a little bit closer so that you guys can really see what I'm doing with my foot, especially for you guys who might be a little bit new in our session. So same thing, you're going to go ahead and bring your right foot about 1.5 feet away from the ball. You're going to put your forefoot in front of the ball, right? And then I'm just going to send my foot down, and again, like a cat, I'm just going to begin to shift my body weight. Really spread your toes out as you shift back and forth. And then you're going to land on the ball again, find that place that you can maintain your position, and again, just move your body around. Doesn't really matter how you move. And then come on back up top. Okay, so now again, you're going to step backward, and you're going to bring that ball just in front of your heel. You see where I'm going here? And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to compress there. And then I'm going to take half of my body weight off, keep my forefoot on the ground, and I go for my glide. So remember, gliding, consistent two-directional pressure. All we're doing with the softball is just preparing the sensory nerves that live in our foot and working on superficial fascia. That's where those sensory nerves live. So we want to wake up that tissue. We don't want to go too deep too fast. We don't want to feel pain. So if this was painful or sensitive to you at all, you could just go back and don't use the firm ball when we get to the firm ball. Just ease back pressure. So again, I'm going to work all the way to the back of my heel, and then I'm going to come back to that point just in front of my heel. I'm going to pin the skin, and I'm going to create my shear. So again, pinning the skin is like dragging the underlying plane, right? I'm not rubbing my fingers against my forearm. Can you see this? Right? I'm pinning the skin, and I'm dragging it on the underlying plane. And then again, we're going to compress and wait. And then we're going to rinse. We're going to go to the ball of the big toe, push that knuckle up, whatever that pressure is, rinse down your foot. And then go to your second knuckle, and rinse. And then the third knuckle, and rinse. And the fourth knuckle, rinse. And the fifth knuckle, and rinse. And then again, a little friction. Notice how you balance and move this leg. And then go ahead and set that ball aside. Let's go ahead and grab our large firm ball. Now again, that large firm ball, it's not going to compress, right? So I want to put my heel behind the ball and I want to tickle the center of my foot. And again, once I'm there, I'm not going straight down onto the ball. I'm sort of pushing toward the ball, right? So I'm pushing forward a little bit. Again, round down for a second with me. All right, notice the tension that you have, the pressure that you're applying when your body is hinged forward. Whatever pressure you can tolerate as you come up, try to maintain whatever pressure that you feel you can. And then let's do that indirect shear, contracting the muscles, opening and wiggling, curling in, open and wiggle. Maybe if you want, slide the ball back another little 1/4 of an inch, curl the toes in. Notice if that's more intense there. You might have it just a little bit too far forward in your foot. Again, we're going to pause for a second. We're going to set our forefoot down to the ground and we're going to go for our glide. So again, with the firm ball, just try to keep consistent pressure. It's not more depth of pressure. The firm ball allows the pressure to be more focal, right? So it doesn't diffuse like the softball does. We can really start to identify areas that are a little bit tacked down, lost a little bit of that nice fluid motion. If fluid doesn't move quickly, you're going to kind of feel like you're going over like little grains of rice. And then again, I'm going to come back to that point just in front of my heel. I'm going to pin the skin, and I'm just going to give it that little wiggle. So I can also kind of think of this as like washing my hair. I don't just slap shampoo on my head. I scrub it, and that increases the volume of space fluid can occupy in the tissue. That's similar to what happens in fascia. So we're increasing those multi-microvascular spaces. I'm going to go ahead and compress and wait. And then I'm going to rinse, again, from my forefoot toward my heel. Yeah, pushing into my knuckle and then pushing. So again, you have so many sensory nerves in your hands and feet. By stimulating a little bit of work into the hands and feet, the two most used parts of our body, you would think that we would spend a little bit more time caring for them. This really is a segue and a gateway to better stability, is improving footing. Let's go one more time, anywhere under your foot. And then the last technique was friction. Now this time, balance on one foot, rub the ball underneath your foot, swap sides, notice how you balance, notice how you shake. One more time, notice how you balance, notice how you shake. And let's go one more time, notice how you balance and notice how it moves. Notice if there's a difference between those two, and then go ahead and set your ball aside. Okay, so now put your feet side by side again and try your forward bend. Okay, so round through your shoulders, round through your hips. Don't let your hips hang back. Really try to keep your hips stacked over your ankles and round down. And notice if you go further, I definitely can go quite a bit further than I did when I started. So again, notice if the tensional pull feels more seamless. And if you're feeling that seamless change, this is important. All we did was work on your feet. Why do you feel changes up the body? Because connective tissue is a seamless system. Take your time, round your body all the way on up, and let's come on down to the ground and let's start doing a little bit of work on our legs. Okay, so we're going to do a little bit of upper and lower body stability. I want to start with a little bit of seated compression because we're going to be doing some of the moves from NeuroStrength. Always great to have some hydration in the hips before you start. So you're going to set your roller down, you're going to sit on up, lean forward, and we're going to glide over the sit bones, so your butt cheeks. And as we're going back and forth, the first thing I want you to notice is, do your hip bones go over evenly? Or are you noticing one hip kind of flips over compared to the other? So just kind of notice that. And the first thing we're going to work on is your deep hip. So I'm going to take my front hand, I'm going to put it out to the side, I'm going to lean into it a little bit, and I'm going to start gliding. So this is my deep hip. Okay, so these are the external hip rotators. These are the ones that cause piriformis syndrome, sciatica. They also contribute to IT band issues. So notice if there's some sensitivity here. If you feel comfortable, you could drop your leg down and relax the muscles even more. If you feel that that's tough, doing it just with one foot on the ground, feel free to keep both feet on the floor, but stay low in the pelvis. And let's just find an area. If you find anything that feels sensitive, don't land right on the sensitive spot. Just get smaller in your movement. And then nuzzle up against the barrier, those areas of tenderness. And let's do two types of shears. Let's do an indirect shear, clamming the leg in and out. Or straighten out your leg, and you're going to move your body slightly over the roller, in the direction of the roller. And then just pause there for a second. Nice focused breath. And then take your time and go on over to the other side. I'm just going to spin myself around so you can see me over on this side. So same thing, I'm just going to slightly tip over to the side, and I'm going to start gliding. So I'm just at the base of my hip. I'm at my sit bone, over to the side of it, and I'm gliding all around here. Remember what I said, what was gliding? It's a preparatory technique. It's a way to prepare tissue. It's a way to prepare your mind, prepare your body for compression, for pressure. What does it feel like as you glide? Is it sensitive? If it is, don't keep raking over the most sensitive spot. Use that as information. Be gentle with your body, finding those areas that are sensitive, explore the tissue. And then once you find one of those areas that you're like, it's a little tender there, I found one, I'm gonna get smaller and smaller in my motion, and I'm just gonna edge up against the barrier. I'm not gonna land right on it, I'm gonna meet the barrier, and I'm going to clam my leg in and out. Now we're going to be doing a move called a clam, and this is the area of our hip we should feel that technique, that movement with. We can also, again, straighten out our leg, and we could do a direct shear. So again, what's the difference between indirect and direct? Indirect, I'm contracting muscle against the area that I'm compressing. Direct, I'm directly influencing with my body movement against the area of compression. So this is more bone to skin. Skin to bone, sorry. I'm gonna wait here for a second. Okay, so just stay where you are on this side. Come down onto your forearm, and we're gonna go into your side hip. So I want you to roll and explore all over the side of your hip. Now this area, you got a bit of a bigger terrain to work with. You could lean into it a little bit and get closer to your thigh bone. You could lean back a little bit and get closer to your tailbone. And again, just explore the whole thing. I could also drop my leg down and relax the muscles even a little bit more. It really just depends on your body savvy and strength of how you want to do this. But again, if I find a spot that feels a little sensitive, I'm going to nuzzle up against it, and I'm going to perform the same techniques. I'm either going to contract the muscle that I'm on, so the roller stays still and I'm moving, a joint away from the area of pressure, indirect, or I'm going to roll my body part over the roller in the direction of the roller. Now in this area, I could also do something called cross friction. I could lean into it, and I could pin the skin, just like I did with the ball on the bottom of my foot, and I could drag my hip forward and backward, right? So again, I'm not rubbing my skin up against the roller, I'm pinning the skin and rubbing the substances on the underlying plane to my bones. Again, I'm gonna wait there for a second, give the tissue a moment to adapt, and then just flip yourself around to the other side. I'm gonna come around over here for you. Same thing, you're gonna bring your forearm down, and same thing, start gliding. We're gonna do another move today called side leg lift. And side leg lift works on the internal hip rotators of your leg, most specifically glute medius, glute minimus, these ones that are a little bit more attached towards the back of the hip. These are oftentimes extremely inhibited, so we're waking up this tissue a little bit, opening up our mind to what we feel again with pressure. Is it sensitive? What do I feel? I don't want to go to the most tender spot, but I want to find something that I feel I could just give a little love to. And I'm going to go ahead and clam the leg in and out. Yeah, so just be gentle. And again, you could also straighten out your leg, and you could move your body over the roller. And then the third way we could go, again, you could put your hand down onto the ground, pin the skin, and we could create cross friction, forward and back. And same thing, I'm just going to pause there for a second, give the tissue a moment to adapt. Okay, so now come on off the roller, and we're going to start with a move called the clam. So let's start maybe on our, I'm going to lie on my left side, maybe just face me. And once you're here, you're going to go ahead and lie on your side. Now again, for those of you who are new to NeuroStrength, the setup is what this is. It's absolutely important. I'm going to come a little bit closer. Hopefully you guys can see me here. Okay, so a couple of things as your setup. First, your head's resting either on the roller, it could be even on a pillow. You're going to outreach your bottom arm a little bit so that you're not lying on your shoulder joint. And you also want to notice, do you feel like you're lying on your hip bone? And if you feel like you're lying on your hip bone, just put your top foot on the ground and just roll your bottom hip back a little bit. Top hip goes forward, and then restack your feet. So your heels are going to remain together. And we need to find a good pelvic position. So let's just try a couple of movements of our pelvis. We have something called a tuck, where you're drawing your pubic bone towards your nose. And then we have a tilt, allowing the tail to swing back just a little bit. So I just want you to go back and forth through your tuck and your tilt. As you're tilting your pelvis and you're sending your tail back, you're not letting your ribs come with you. So really key into the ribs staying nice and relaxed. And again, just kind of undulating the pelvis from a tuck to a tilt. Okay, so you're going to maintain that tilt so it's a little tail back. Second thing we want to do is called the stack. You're going to move your top hip away from your top ribs. Okay, so that's kind of lifted my waistline a little bit, but again, my ribs have stayed down. We're gonna just try that 2 times. So just reaching that top hip and then let it release, and try that one more time. Reaching and stacking that top hip. Okay, so again, we've got a tilt, we have a stack. Third thing we wanna try to hold is the roll. You're gonna fall forward a little bit, and if you've done that right, look at your top knee, should bypass your bottom knee by just a little bit. So we're holding a tilt, a stack, and a roll. Hold that position, keep your top hip glued to your bottom hip, and really slowly clam the top leg up. Once you're here, just hang out. We're gonna neurologically reintegrate the timing of the deep stabilizers of your lateral hip, okay? So as you're holding your leg up, your brain's going through a file cabinet trying to figure out how many muscles it can recruit to hold your leg there. And some of you guys might start feeling that your bottom leg is getting tired because you're probably pushing into your bottom leg to hold this top leg up. So we're gonna rewire your nervous system, keep everything the same, keep your top heel pressing into your bottom heel. You're gonna re-tilt your tail. We're gonna restack. And again, you're gonna energize that top knee forward and try to clam that leg up higher. We're gonna override some other compensation. Take your top hand, put it down onto the ground. I just want you to push your hand into the floor, keeping your ribs behind you. It's an idea more than a thing. Think about lifting your bottom leg off the ground just by 1/4 of an inch. As if you could slip a piece of paper underneath it, hold that. So again, I can't lift my bottom leg and push it down at the same time. And then I'm gonna let that bottom leg relax, and now I'm gonna go for my reintegration set number 2. I'm gonna let this top knee drop down, and then nice and slow, I'm gonna reach that knee forward as it comes up. Check your tilt, stack, and roll. Keep your pelvis in the same spot. Nice and slow, release it down. Such a small movement, keeping the top heel pressing on the bottom heel, clamming it up and pause. Nice and slow, bringing it down. Check your tilt, stack, and roll again. Clamming that leg up. If you're feeling a little meandering, a little shaking, you are in the right pathway. Bringing it back down one more time, clamming that leg up, pausing, and then slowly bringing it down. You're gonna go 4 for the pattern. Lose the pause, so a pattern has no pausing. We're just gonna move through that range of motion. Keep that tilt, stack, and roll, right? So that energy of that hip is staying away from the top ribs. One more time here. Holding it, think about that bottom leg lifting one more time, and then release it all the way down. Oh, now listen, if you've done it correctly and you've rewired the right neural pathway, you're gonna feel all of that work low in the hip. If you're feeling it down the leg or in your low back, wrong pathway. Go ahead and spin yourself around. Let's just try that one move on the other side. This is one of my favorite moves. I do this one quite a bit, and I always find that if ever my hips felt tight or I just didn't feel right in my hips, this is the one move that really helps me out the most. Okay, so again, setup is key. Bottom arm, outreach it a little bit so that you're not lying on your shoulder joint. Notice if you feel like you're lying on the bony prominence of the side of your hip, take your top foot onto the ground and roll your bottom hip back so that you feel more like you're lying on your thigh rather than the hip bone. You're gonna go ahead and stack your heels together. And again, we're gonna just practice tucking and tilting. So remember, tucking, pubic bone curls to the nose. Tilting, the tail moves back. These are very subtle movements. You're only moving your pelvis. Your ribs are not coming with you. Focus on what's staying stable. What is staying stable? My legs and my ribs. My pelvis is what's moving. One more time, you're gonna tuck your pubic bone towards your nose, and then you're gonna tilt. You're gonna think about moving the pubic bone between your legs, and then here we go, we're gonna stack the top hip over the bottom hip. Again, it's just as if I'm trying to lift my waistline a little bit. My ribs have not come with me. And then again, I'm gonna take my top hip and roll it forward. This is really to decrease the movement of the pelvis that wants to happen when we clam the leg. Once we're here, pressing that top heel against the bottom heel, nice and slow, lift that top leg up. Again, just stay there. Keep your top heel pressing into the bottom heel. As you're sitting in this one position, again, your brain is adapting to try to compensate. No matter how hard you try to keep your position, you've probably already lost it. So again, keep your body here, re-tilt your tail, restack, and re-roll, and then again, try to lift that leg up. Okay, top hand goes down to the ground. Again, you're gonna kind of push the floor away from you. That's gonna keep your ribs back. And then, idea more than a thing, you're just going to think about lightening the load of your bottom leg. Again, I can't push into my bottom leg and lift it at the same time. Decreasing that compensation to push into our bottom leg to hold that top leg up should be really challenging here right now. Let that bottom leg relax, check your tilt, stack, and roll, and then nice and slow. 4 for the reintegration here. We're going to energize our knee forward to come up, keeping that top heel on the bottom heel, and then nice and slow come down. Again, energize that knee, clam it up and pause. No movement of the pelvis, right? The only thing that's moving right now is the leg, right? So again, check your tilt, stack, and roll, energizing that top ribs, the top hip away from the top ribs, and then bringing it back down. One more time. Knee goes forward to come up. Again, energize that leg up. And then nice and slow, bringing it down. 4 for the pattern, no pause, just keep a nice even pace. We come up 4, we bring it down, check your tilt, stack, and roll. 3, down, 2, down, one more time, lift, and release it all the way down. Ooh. Really intense. So notice if one side was a little bit more challenging than the other, oftentimes that is what's happening. We're going to be doing a couple of moves on one side before we flip on over. So I want you guys to take your resistant band and you're going to go ahead and drop this on down on the ground. Okay? And then once you're here, just allow your pelvis to land right on top of the band, okay? So your hips are gonna be what's gonna keep that band in place. We're gonna use it in a minute, not quite yet. First, we're gonna add one of my favorite moves called an inner thigh lift. So to do this move, just set it up. You're gonna bring your bottom knee at a nice 90-degree angle. Sorry, let me start that over again. Bringing both legs, we're gonna stack this leg up. I was thinking side leg lift. You're gonna bring both legs straight out. So I want you to really feel right now you've stacked your legs, one on top of the other, okay? Take your roller out ahead of you. And nice and slow, we're going to come on down. Now, once we're here, the goal here is to stay in the side lying pose. Most people will fall forward. I want you to stay exactly side lying for me, okay? And you're going to take your top leg up. You're going to extend it out ahead of you, and you're going to put the arch of your foot on your roller. Once you have it, roll the roller back to you until you feel you can stack your entire shin onto the top of the roller. Okay, so I have not fallen forward. I'm perfectly side lying. Once I'm here, I've got that same type of a setup. I'm going to think a little tail back, a little tilt. I'm going to think a little stack, top hip energizing over the bottom. And again, instead of falling forward, I'm just going to think about energizing my front knee forward. I'm not rolling forward, I'm just energizing it. Reach your bottom leg long. Put your top hand on your waistline. And on the count of 3, you're just going to pay attention to what you feel in your hand. We're going to notice for compensation, and we're going to lift that bottom leg. You ready? 1, 2, 3. Lift up your bottom leg. And I want you to notice, what did you feel up in your waistline? If you felt a big contraction in the muscles, that's a compensatory pathway. We want to override that. So you're going to drop your leg back down, recheck your tilt, your stack, energize that front knee forward, and move more slowly, very slowly. Just lift your leg part of the way up off the floor. See if you can minimize the obliques from activating at the onset of the lift. We want those adductors to do most of the work. Okay, so now once we're here, to really set up the pose, you're going to kick your shin forward as if you're going to kick your shin into the roller, and now try to lift the leg up higher, again, not with the waistline activating. So energize your top hip, energize the bottom leg at the same time. Now again, we're just holding a position. We are reintegrating that neurological timing of those deep stabilizers of our pelvis. So here's how we're going to override some compensation. Take your top hand, put it onto your roller. Idea again, more than a thing. You're going to think about lifting your top shin off the roller and then lift your bottom leg up higher at the same time. Hold there. And now let your top leg relax again and recheck in. Top hip is away from the top ribs. Once we're here, we're going to try to bring that leg up 1 inch and wait. And then nice and slow, we're going to come down about halfway so that the leg is still working just about parallel to the roller. We're going to try it again. Slow lift and pause. Wait. That's the secret of reintegration. Hold it. And then nice and slow, returning it down. Exhale as you lift. Pause. Inhale as you come down. One more time. Exhale and lift. Now we're going to go for a pattern. Let the leg come all the way down to the ground, back up to where you had it, all the way down, all the way up. 2 more. All the way down, all the way up. One more time, all the way down, lifting that leg up. I feel it too. Hold there. We're going to do a quick little reintegrate here, pulsing 4, 3, 2, little challenge, and then releasing it all the way down. Okay, stay right where you are. Just take your roller and bring it behind your head. Okay, so now once we're here, go ahead and bend your knees for a moment. It'll just be an easier position. Just like what we just set up, you're going to outreach your bottom arm, and I want you to put your top arm on top of your body for a moment. Okay, first movement that I just want you guys to practice is a little bit of rotation. So I just want you to notice, how do you rotate your arm? Notice that your whole body isn't coming with you, right? It's just the arm in rotation. Small range of motion. If you found just the external rotation of your arm, when you pause at the top, your fingers should look like they're pointing toward where the ceiling meets the walls in front of you, okay? So nice diagonal angle. And once we're here, we're just going to internally rotate, and wherever you have the band, just crumble up that much band. This will give us the same amount of band when we get to the other side. Good way to practice so that you have an even keel on both sides. And once I'm here again, I've got a nice loose handle. I'm going to think about pulling the band up, like as if I'm going to pull it out from under me, and I'm going to bend my elbow again. Now, to reintegrate this position, I'm going to punch my arm forward. I want you to notice that my hand is in front of my hip. It has not gone in front of my shoulder. So find this angle, hand in front of your hip, and then nice and slowly bend your elbow and bring your arm all the way behind you until your hand looks like it's over your own hip bone. So punch toward the front and then pull back over the hip. Punching forward and pull. 2 more. Punch forward and back. 1 more time, and this time as you come back with the arm, I want you to bend your elbow, but I want you to stop before your elbow gets to the level of your body. Now, if you feel like your shoulder's already burning on fire, you could always take your bottom hand and hang on to that elbow a little bit, but if you can, let's go for our second reintegration. Externally rotate, the elbow staying in front of me. I come back to parallel, pause. Externally rotate. Back to parallel and pause. Externally rotate. Back to parallel and pause. 1 more time. Externally rotate. Back to parallel and pause. You're going to go 4 for the pattern. If you're feeling anything in your neck, you're done. Set the band down. Just go through the range without the band. Don't reintegrate a poor neural pathway. 1 more time. Externally rotate, and then let it come down. Let go of the band, and now again, just go through the range of motion. Now, if you've acquired the deep stabilizers and you've actually activated them correctly, you're going to feel the burn in the shoulder, not the neck. If you feel it in your neck, we're in the wrong pathway. Again, your brain's just got to figure out how to reintegrate natural movement, okay? And again, compensation, the way that we live, is what causes some of these problems. Okay, so now we're going to try our side leg lift. So you're going to bend your bottom knee, and you're going to straighten out your top leg. Now again, I don't want you to feel like you're lying on your hip bone. You want to feel like you're lying on your thigh. So if you need to, just kind of roll your bottom hip back a little bit, and then set your legs up. Okay, so again, bottom knee is bent 90 degrees. Top leg is straight. I want you to key in here. Your ankle, your knee, your hip, your shoulder, and your head. Everything is on one straight line. Try to find it. Bottom arm, again, don't be on your shoulder. You're just going to kind of outreach your arm a little bit, so you're more on the back side of your shoulder than the side of your shoulder. We're going to go back to that tilt, stack, and roll again. So you're going to tilt your tail back. We're going to stack your top hip. Can you see what happens with my waistline? I'm going to stack it. And then again, I'm going to energize my top hip near my knee. Like as if you had a headlight, you want the headlight to aim toward the ground, not straight ahead. So it's aiming down. Keep your tilt, stack, and roll nice and slow. We're going to go ahead and bring this leg to about parallel to the floor. Hang out there. Now again, your brain's going to go through a file cabinet. How many muscles can it recruit to hold that heavy leg up and you not noticing that you're compensating? It can use a lot, okay? So again, we let the nervous system do what it wants to do. Our autonomic nervous system knows best, but we're just going to tinker with it a little bit. You're going to tilt your tail back. You're going to stack your top leg. You're going to, again, roll forward. Notice if you've come out of the first position, okay? So here now, we're going to internally rotate the leg. You're going to come back to neutral. You're going to externally rotate your leg. You don't have to do anything with your ankle. Go back to neutral. You don't have to flex it, just keep it relaxed. Internally rotate. This is all happening from my hip joint. Back to neutral. Externally rotate. Back to neutral. So I'm going to do it wrong this time, so watch me. Internally rotate. That looks fine. Back to neutral. Externally rotate, right? I don't want my hip to come with me, so really check that the pelvis is staying in one spot. Internally rotate. Back to neutral. Externally rotate. and back to neutral. Now, internally rotate your leg. Take a quick look down at your leg. It should still be in line with your hip. It has not drifted forward. Now we're going to lift the leg up an inch and pause. Then you're going to come back to parallel and pause. Check your tilt, stack, and roll. Lift up just from the leg, right? Just from the hip joint. And back to parallel. That waistline is not changing. Lifting that leg up 1 inch and wait. Go back to parallel and wait. One more time, such a small movement. Be precise. Lifting up and wait. And then back to parallel and wait. Check your tilt, stack, and roll one more time. Let's go for the pattern. Lifting it up where you had it, and then bringing the leg all the way down. Let it touch the floor. Nice and slow lift up, all the way down. Up just a touch past parallel, all the way down. Just a touch past parallel, and all the way down. Take this last challenge. Bring that leg up just a little bit past parallel. No pause this time. Internal and external rotation. Internal, external. 2 more. Internal, external. 1 more time. Internal, external, and release it all the way down. Okay, so if you did that one right, it's going to be a much higher sensation in your thigh. It's going to be more into that side hip rather than when we did the clams, more deep hip. So see if you sense the difference. Okay, let's go ahead and flip around to the other side. Same thing, we're going to go ahead and set ourselves up. So again, your band should be secured by your hips. Make sure that your hip is on here. And again, what we're going to do is come on down onto our side. Remember, we're going to go into a full, perfect side lying pose. And I'm going to go ahead and drop my body down. I'm going to put the roller out ahead of me. And again, don't fall forward. Try to keep your perfect side lying pose. We're going to take your top arch of your foot on the roller, and then we're going to roll the roller back toward you. And then you're going to rest your shin against the roller, okay? Now, listen, very similar to the other moves. If you feel like you're lying right on your hip bone, this time, instead of rolling your hip back, lift up your bottom hip and scoop it forward a little bit, and then set your hip back down, okay? So this one's, again, super technical. Lots of stuff on this on Melt On Demand for tutorials, so I know it's a tough move to do. Again, we've got this subtle bit of setup with the pelvis. The pelvis position is really important for this one. So again, it's a little tilt back. It's a tiny stack. And then again, instead of rolling the body forward, feel like you're trying to energize your knee forward, almost like you're trying to open the front of your hip socket. Then again, put your hand on your waistline. Let's check for compensation. Just on the count of 3, lift up your bottom leg. Don't think about it. 1, 2, 3, we're going to lift it up. You want to notice again, do you feel a lot of contraction in the obliques? Oftentimes, our obliques think that they're adductors, but they are not. So again, we're going to bring our leg down. We're going to re-tilt. We're going to restack, and we're going to energize that front knee forward to keep that front hip open, and much more slowly and maybe less high, we're going to bring that bottom leg up. Again, minimize the waistline engagement. Once we're here, getting into the more correct pose, we're going to kick that leg forward a little bit, like as if you're kicking your shin to the roller. And then you're going to try to lift the leg up higher. Now, once you're there, top hand, put it on the roller. You're just going to push into the roller with your hand, and just think about lightening the weight of your shin, just an idea more than a thing, as you lift your leg. So again, we're minimizing the push of the top leg to lift the bottom leg. You can't lift the top leg and push at it at the same time, right? So we're overriding compensation. Then again, we're going to let our upper body relax. We're going to try to lift that bottom leg up higher. And then again, nice and slow, we're going to bring the leg just about to parallel, and then again, lifting it up. I always say if I had a cup of coffee on my arch is straight to the sky, and then I'm going to bring it back down. So don't let your heel guide, let the side of your foot guide as you lift. Pause, and then nice and slowly come down. Again, you're just going to pause, and again, we're going to lift it up and pause, and then coming back down and pause. This time, you're going to lift that leg up, and now we're going to go for our pattern. So no pause. You're going to bring it all the way down, coming all the way up. Energize that top hip forward. Don't let that waistline close off. 2 more, lifting and lowering, and 1 more time, lifting and lowering. If that leg is shaking, you're doing a great job. Lift that leg up, pause there for a second, kick the leg forward, bring it up, and we're going to do 4 small pulses just for a little challenge. 4, 3, 2, hold it there on that last one, and then nice and slow, go ahead and release it all the way down. Tough one to do, but I really love that one. Okay, so now you're gonna take your roller, just use it as a pillow. You're gonna rest your head onto the roller. Again, we're gonna outreach that bottom arm. Make sure that you're not lying on your shoulder joint. Knees are gonna bend just to be in a comfortable pose. Again, you can always roll that bottom hip back now so that you're comfortable on your thighs with your knees bent. Again, let's practice this. Put your elbow just in front of your torso and just nice and slow, move your arm forward and back. So what we don't want to do when we do this rotation is let the arm float behind us, right? So it's not a big movement with the arm. It's just rotation of the glenohumeral joint. So the scapula is not going to move at all. Okay, so again, wherever, when you internally rotate, wherever your fingers are, give or take, that was about how much band you had on the other side. So again, I'm just going to go ahead and crumble up the band, nice loose handle. Once I've got that loose handle in my hand, I'm going to pull up. Do you see what I'm doing? I'm pulling up with the band, and then I'm setting my arm up. Once I'm here, again, I'm just gonna hang out for a second, checking that I don't feel it in my neck. If I do, drop the band, reset, try it again. But again, I'm gonna go for my first reintegration set. I'm gonna punch my arm forward, it's in front of my hip, and then I'm gonna let my elbow float back. So I'm punching forward, and I'm pulling back. So these are, again, stabilizers of the glenohumeral joint. We want to make sure that these can actually work and they have good timing. One more time, I'm going to go forward. And now listen, this time as I come back, I'm going to bend my elbow, but I'm going to stop before my elbow reaches the level of my hip. Again, I'm going to hold here. If I feel like this is a ton of work and I'm really fatigued, I could always take my bottom hand and hold my elbow to give myself some support. Otherwise, I go through my external rotation, I pause, and then I come back to parallel and I pause. And then I go through subtle external rotation. And I come back to neutral. So it's not about the range. It's really about the activation of the onset of the movement. Remember, we're looking at the stabilizers of the shoulder one more time and making sure that these stabilizers are active as I create that external rotation. They're holding the joint in place and coming back to neutral. 4 for the pattern. Here we go. 4, 3, 2, and 1, and release it all the way back down. So remember, if you feel that all in your neck, you're in the wrong pathway, you'd be better off just dropping the band and just, again, going through the range of motion. You can go through that with me right now. Right? Because again, we're trying to reintegrate timing of stabilizers. It's a kind of a unique concept, especially because most of us are all about strength. Okay, so really working with intrinsic stabilizers. These are not muscle movers. These are the ones that stabilize us so we move. So again, I'm going to do side leg lift here. I want to bend my bottom knee. Remember, if you bend your bottom knee and you feel a whole bunch of weight on your hip bone, just roll your bottom hip back. I just say shove your bottom hip back a little bit, drop the top, the bottom of the thigh so that you feel like you've got more weight on your thigh than your hip bone. Top leg is going to come out nice and long. And again, what I want to really think about is, can I feel that my ankle, my knee, my hip, my shoulder, and my ear are all in one straight line? Okay, once you find that position, again, we're going to do our tilt, stack, and roll just like we did in our first move called the clamp. So side leg lift, same. You're going to tilt, we're going to stack, and we're going to roll the top hip forward. So subtle on these movements, right? Why would these subtle positions mean something? Because the pelvic position is what really reintegrates the timing. So again, tilt, stack, and roll. Find your core. Go ahead and just make a little SH sound if you need to. Nice and slow. We're going to bring that leg up to parallel, and we're going to wait. So again, as soon as we bring our leg up, our brain's going through a file cabinet, because us paying attention to what's staying stable and holding positions, not a normal thing to do. We're movers, right? We move when we want to go do something. Here we're focusing quite deeply on stabilization. After about 10-15 seconds, you retilt, you restack, you re-roll. Again, notice how far you've moved from that first setup. And then we're going to internally rotate the leg. We're going to come back to neutral. We're going to try to externally rotate the leg. Don't let the leg kick forward. It's got to stay in the same spot. Internally rotate, back to neutral, externally rotate, back to neutral, internally rotate, back to neutral, externally rotate, back to neutral. One more time. Internally rotate, back to neutral, externally rotate, back to neutral. Now listen, internally rotate, check your tilt, stack, and roll. Again, you can even put your top hand down to keep your ribs behind you and lift that leg up 1 inch, just an inch, and then bring it back to parallel and wait. Try again, lifting the leg up just an inch, and then back to parallel and wait. If you need to keep your hand on your hip, do it. Again, keep the stack, lifting that leg up just 1 inch. Don't let the waistline close off on that top side. Go back to parallel and wait. Amazing how such a tiny movement can be so challenging. Lifting up and wait, energizing that heel long, back to parallel and wait. 4 for the pattern, you come up to where you had it, and now you go all the way down to the ground, all the way back up again, no movement in your pelvis. Really focus on what's staying stable. Stack the ribs. The ribs are nice and level. The hip is stacked all the way down. Let's go 2 more, lifting and down. And on this last one, we're going to bring that leg up. We're going to hold it just 1 inch above parallel. Check your tilt, stack, and roll. And then with no pausing, internal and external rotation with the legs. So tricky. 2 more, internal, external. 1 more time, internal, external, and release it all the way down. Such an intense move. Again, if you're feeling that big burn, you've gotten that right pathway. Okay, so take your time. Let's come on down onto our back, and let's bend our knees, find our core, push into your feet, lift up your hips, and nice and slowly bring your roller underneath the back of your pelvis. Now, where's the back of your pelvis? It's not on your low back. So a good way to tell you've got the roller in the right place, if you put your hands on the top of your hip bones and run your thumbs behind you, you're not going to run into the roller, okay? So if I go ahead and I bring my knees in towards my chest, the roller's not going to fly out from underneath me. I can even tuck my knees in. And again, I've got that nice firm position of the back of my pelvis atop the roller. I'm going to move my knees a little bit away from my body. And I like doing a SI joint shear with my hands kind of tucked into my body. So I'm going to tip my knees over to the left. I'm going to tuck my right knuckles underneath my right hip. And then I'm going to tip my knees over to the right. I'm going to tuck my knuckles into the left side of my hip. And I'm just going to slowly rock left to right. And again, when I like doing that with my knuckles because it stops me from going too far. So if my knees were from, like on a face of a clock, from 12 o'clock to 11 and 1 o'clock, not 2 and 10. So don't angle too far. And I'm going to start on my left side. I'm going to just slightly tip my knees over to the left. That's going to get me on that left SI joint. And today I'm going to try to just circle my left leg, my left hip joint. And it doesn't need to be a big circle, but it also doesn't need to be fast. What I want to see is, can I maintain my slight tip, maintain the pressure at the SI joint, and circle my hip? Now, if you feel any clicking, popping, snapping, or crunching, just pause for a second and let's try a different technique. Let's just go ahead and slowly march our knees forward and backward, nice and slow. So both are great ways to shear. There's one other way, but we're just going to pick 2 today. And anytime you do a shear technique in melt, just pause. Give the tissue a moment to adapt. And then tip your knees over to the other side. Same thing. So again, I'm just landing more on my right SI joint. I'm just a little bit off from the center of my pelvis. And then again, I'm going to create these small circles with my leg. So notice as you do this, do your ribs start to arch? Do you get tense in your upper body? Again, if you have your hand tucked underneath the hip, that can actually help to guide the hip joint so that you keep the pressure constant on the SI joint on the side. And then again, you're going to bring your knees back together, and really slowly, we're going to march our knees forward and backward, nice and slow. Right, so these movements don't need to be fast. We're compressing and creating motion to create these gentle shear motions at joints. So again, not very big movements, nice and slow and controlled. Again, we're going to wait here for a moment, give the tissue a moment to adapt. Nice breath in and out. And then bring your legs back to the center. Okay, so we've got a tuck and tilt challenge, a core challenge, and an advanced core challenge today. Put your hands on the front of your thighs. You're going to slide your hands down your thighs until your fingers poke just above your knees. And then once you're there, extend your elbows and try to get your arms like 2 steel posts. Just keep them nice and straight. Listen to this cue. Take a breath in, and on an exhale, make your SH, SE, or HA sound to find your core. You guys who are not familiar with what I'm talking about, that's why you'd want to go to MOD, to Melt On Demand, to find this. Once you make your SH sound, press your thighs into your hands and do that. Shh. And then inhale, ease back some of that intention to press your thighs to your hands. And again, make your SH sound, shh, and press your thighs into your hands. Now notice what you feel. If you've got good core activation, I'm not talking about those superficial muscles. If you feel some engagement in your abdomens when you press your thigh into your hand, that's psoas. So you want to maintain that pressure with your thigh to hand pressure. Keep that. Take a little sip of air, and on an exhale, tuck your pelvis, curl your pubic bone towards your nose. Now notice that that might drop your ribs a little bit. Pay attention now to where your ribs are. Keep your thighs pressing into your hand. Take a sip of air. And on an exhale, tilt your pelvis back atop the roller. So pubic bone is kind of being energized towards your big toes. Take another breath in. On an exhale, tuck your pelvis. Keep those thighs pressing into your hands. Take another little sip of air. And again, on an exhale, untuck your pelvis. Move more toward the tilt. That's not an invitation to lift your ribs. One more time. Exhale and tuck. Another breath in. Exhale and tilt. Okay, now listen, maintain that tilt. Again, pubic bone is kind of sliding towards your toes, okay? Keep your left hand and your left thigh together. Take your right hand, cross it over. Keep your left thigh pressing into your left hand. Take a breath in, and on an exhale, let your right hip start to open up, okay? Not your knee, your hip. You're going to pause with your foot suspended over the floor. You're going to take a breath in. On an exhale, make your SH sound and press your thigh into your hand. Shh. Keep that exhale going and slowly return that leg up. Let's try it on the right thigh. Right thigh, right hand together. Keep your tilt. Again, pubic bone is moving away from the belly button. Take a breath in. On an exhale, we're going to lower that left leg down. We're going to pause. Once we're here, take a sip of air. On an exhale, press your thigh into your hand more. Keep your exhale going and slowly return the left leg back home. Let's try it one more time on both sides. Left thigh, left hand together. On an exhale, right leg comes on down. Again, I'm opening up the front of the hip, challenging my hip flexor on this right side, taking a sip of air. And again, I almost feel like it's like a fishing pole, reeling my leg back in, sinking back into the socket. Remember, the pelvis is in a tilt. Right hand, right thigh together. Exhaling, letting that left leg lower on down. Again, I'm going to pause. I'm going to take another sip of air. And on an exhale again, I'm going to kind of reel that thigh, sinking it back into the socket. Here comes my advanced core challenge. We're going to do it once on both sides, still in a tilt. Left thigh, left hand together. On an exhale, right leg is going to come down. We're going to pause. This time you're going to take a sip of air. And on an exhale, press your thigh into your hand and then kick your right leg out. And now once your leg is out, tuck your pelvis. Pubic bone goes towards your nose. Press your thigh into your hand. Hold it, hold it, hold it. Shh. And then slowly return that leg back in. Reset your pelvis back to the tilt. Right thigh, right hand together, left hand over the top. Take a breath in. On an exhale, let your left leg come on down again. You're going to pause. Stay here. Take a sip of air. Press your thigh into your hand. Slowly kick that leg out. And then once the leg is extended, tuck your pelvis. Tuck, tuck, tuck. Press the thigh into the hand. Hold it, hold it, hold it. Take one more sip of air. And then exhale, folding at the hip and the knee, and return it on back home. Put both hands in front of both thighs again, tucking and tilting your pelvis. Notice if it's a little easier for you to move your pelvis now, tucking and then tilting. And then just relax. Take your right foot down to the ground, ball of the big toe outside of the foot and the heel. Let's do a quick lengthening technique. Notice if the roller is moved down a little bit, just bring it back up where you need it to be. I want you to now tuck your pelvis, bring your left knee in towards your chest to accentuate the tuck. And now very slowly, I want you to feel like you're energizing your right knee over your toes as you move your pubic bone towards your nose. Think two bony prominences, the pubic bone and the knee, moving away from one another, opening up the front of the thigh. Inhale, ease back some of that intention to find tension. And then again, energizing the knee over the toes as you tuck your pubic bone towards your nose. Again, finding tension against a myofascial meridian, against that front line. And now let's let that go. Bring that knee in. Find your left foot down to the ground, ball of the big toe outside of the foot and the heel. And again, we're going to tuck our pelvis. We're going to bring our knee towards our chest. And again, we're going to take a breath in and we're going to exhale. And again, the only thing this right leg is doing is accentuating a tuck, curling the pubic bone towards the nose as I energize my left knee over my toes. So I am gently compressing my foot to the floor to find that fascial tension Inhaling, easing back some intention to find tension, and then exhaling and creating the length. Beautiful. Bring your knees on into your chest. One last thing I always like to do in any class is a quick neck decompress. I'm going to keep my knees bent on the ground. I'm going to bring the roller right behind the base of my skull. Where is the base of my skull? If I tip my nose up to the sky like I'm smelling something good in the air, and I set that roller up at the base of my skull, my hairline is on my side of the roller. It's not tucked onto the top of the roller. I'm going to slowly turn my head a little left to right. I'm going to create a couple little figure eights here. And then I'm just going to pause, take a nice breath in, exhale. And then just push that roller to the center of the back of your head. Tip your nose up to the sky a little bit. Think about keeping your pressure right atop the roller. And we're going to go with just a little traction, a little neck decompress. Take a breath in. And on the exhale, nod your nose down. Now don't lose the space in the front of your neck. Remember, we're lengthening through, taking a breath in. And on the exhale, keeping that length as we lift our chin back up. So decompressing or releasing some of that unnecessary tension in the neck. Exhaling so subtle, nodding the nose down. Taking a breath in, and then exhaling and lifting the chin up. One more time. Exhale and nod down. And then taking a breath in, and exhaling and lifting the chin back up. Okay, get rid of the roller, lie flat on your back, palms up, arms and legs extended, and let's reassess. Remember what I had mentioned. I like feeling my masses more relaxed on the ground than when I start. So I want you to key into your upper body. If you felt before like you had a lot of weight on your shoulder blades, notice if now you have more weight in the mid ribs, more weight on the rib cage rather than the girdle. It's a better positioning for our bodies. Noticing if the tension that you had perhaps in your low back, if the low back just feels more open, but less of the archway up top and more of the openness around the navel and below. Notice if you're feeling more of that fluffy butt cheeks, more of the bottom being on the floor, or if you're noticing the back of thigh masses that have settled to the floor. My back thighs have definitely settled down quite a bit. And then from left to right, ear to heel, just divide yourself into a left and a right half. And my question to you is, have we balanced your autopilot? Does your autopilot have a better connection to your center of gravity? If the answer is yes, it's a great melt map for you. Bend your knees, roll on your side, and come on up to sitting. Now listen, if after you were to do a treatment like that, if you came down and you felt more offset or you were really noticing one side or the other, you haven't necessarily done anything wrong. That's information about what you're doing to your body. And our objective here is to get your autopilot to reacquire a connection to your center of gravity. So if we work on the pelvis and you feel more offset, or maybe you feel differently offset, maybe you were weighted to the right side and now you feel weighted to the left side. Again, it's information for you to then come back and try it again. You might want to end with a rebalance sequence or end with the foot treatment, right? So the real uniqueness about MELT is figuring out which MELT maps work best for you and what types of changes you feel. Our goal here is to make you feel more settled in your body, more relaxed, more balanced. So if you're finding that from these types of treatments, that's great. Remember, neurological reintegration and repatterning, very nuanced techniques. The secret is pausing and finding your positions and being precise with them and focusing on what's staying stable as you move. Don't think about the movement. Try to drift your mind away from the movement itself and focus on where you want to stay stable as you execute the movement. You're going to Jedi mind trick your brain to moving away from those compensatory sensory motor pathways and restoring some of the neurological timing to the deep stabilization mechanisms of your shoulder girdle, pelvis, and core. So I hope that you enjoyed that session today. I'm going to put on my glasses and just see if there's any questions today about that treatment. And again, these are here and recorded for you, so you could always come back and practice again if you'd like and see if there's anything, you know, that you want to work on a little bit more. Oh, I'm so glad. Good. I'm glad that you guys enjoyed that one. And again, just make sure if you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, Subscribe to the YouTube channel because I'm going to be doing more of these. Next week, I'm not going to be doing a session on Wednesday. I think I'm going to be doing a session on Friday. I'm meeting with my team down in Florida, so I won't be able to do it on Wednesday, but I will be back on Friday, and then the following week, I'm going to do another session for you. And again, just dropping some techniques. I'm going to be working on some key integrated technique tutorials coming up in the upcoming weeks to refine some of your practice on the techniques that I've shown you so far. I'm so glad that you guys came to join me today. Thank you so much for being part of the MELT community. Remember, you could go to meltmethod.com. You can find out about MELT on demand. And again, subscribe to this MELT Method page because there's lots of treatments that are here for you to practice as well. I thank you guys all for being part of the session today. And remember, sip water frequently. Eat water-filled foods, and if you would for me today, please, reach out to somebody that you love and just call them and tell them why you love them. Put a little bit of positive energy out into the world because it comes back to everybody and elevates the frequency of the whole universe. Now listen, if you want to find out anything more about the techniques that we did today, if you go to MELT On Demand and you go to the MELT Performance or NeuroStrength collection, you're going to find all of the video tutorials, and there's also tutorials on the moves themselves in my refined category on the app. But if you were to go to the MELT Performance videos, you're going to see some of these treatments broken down into 3 sections: core stability, hip stability, shoulder girdle stability. So practice those, and I hope that you enjoyed it. And thanks so much for being part of the MELT tribe. Happy melting.